Andrew Bone, recruiting reporter for Rivals.com, BamaInsider.com, is with us. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Gary. How are you doing?
Doing well. Nick Saban finally announces his full staff for 2018 on Thursday. And I tell you what, it's a good-looking staff, I think, particularly from a recruiting standpoint. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think it's a very good staff, especially from a recruiting standpoint. You've got a lot of young guys, a lot of new, fresh faces, that are on the staff. Plus, you got a few veterans that are on there now that guys that recruits are familiar with, and it's going to be I think it's going to be a really good recruiting year for Alabama, especially with the new staff. You kind of see, if you're on Twitter and you follow any of these coaches on Twitter, you kind of seen the way that they've been interacting and posting every day. And I think it's just going to be a good start for Alabama with this staff. And I think obviously Nick Saban was probably a little disappointed with the way things ended on National Signing Day. You look at various sites, and Alabama finished no higher than 6th or 7th on most of the websites, and Nick Saban's not used to that. He's used to having that number one recruiting class every single year, if not number one, maybe number two. And even though it was a smaller class, only signing 19 players, Alabama's looking to have a big recruiting year in 2019 and getting some new blood on campus, and probably working on their approach towards going after some top guys. And they've had several junior days. They're going to have another one this weekend. And then the coaches are going to hit the road in the spring and, of course, leading into the summer. I think we'll see a big change in the way, the way Alabama goes about their business this year.
Andrew Bone with us here on the Bud Light Hotline. Yeah, one thing that was kind of unique is that Alabama only signed 2 players from the state this past recruiting cycle. And Michael Parker, the tight end from Westminster Christian in Huntsville, was probably going to blue shirt and delay his enrollment had they not had some scholarships open up. Of course, Jalen Armour-Davis, terrific cornerback from St. Paul's Episcopal there in Mobile. The other, none from Mississippi, none from Georgia. Of course, Alabama recruits nationally. We know that. But I would think with the class that's coming up in state this year, in the state of Alabama, and the class that's coming up in the state of Mississippi for 2019, there'll be renewed emphasis on staying close to home this year. There's some great prospects in both these states coming up for 2019.
Oh, absolutely. Alabama's loaded, Mississippi's loaded, Georgia's loaded, Louisiana's loaded. There's a lot of states that are loaded with top talent, and 2 of the states that Alabama can really focus in on, that they can have success in, is Alabama and Mississippi. Alabama, a lot of top talent in the state this year. Alabama already has one in-state commitment in Pierce Quick, top 100 offensive lineman out of Hewitt-Trussville. I think they've got a good chance to sign a couple quarterbacks from in-state, and Paul Tyson also out of Hewitt-Trussville, and Tuola Tagovailoa from Thompson High School, to his younger brother. You have Clay Webb, the 5-star offensive lineman at Oxford High School. It's very high on Alabama's list. He also has Alabama very high on his list. So I think Alabama can really have a great offensive line class just by going and getting guys from in the state of Alabama. I mean, you already have Pierce Quick on board. Clay Webb's the top target. Amari Knight out of Thompson High School, big 6'6", 300-pound lineman who has offers from schools across the country, but grew up an Alabama fan. So you could end up having potentially 3 offensive line signees from just the state of Alabama.
Yeah, that's impressive. And you're right. It's a great class for offensive linemen and the quarterbacks. You mentioned Talia Tagovailoa and Paul Tyson. Alabama has offered both. Do you think if they want to come that Alabama would sign both those quarterbacks?
I think so. I think Alabama wants to sign 2 quarterbacks this year after not signing one in the 2018 class. And, those are 2 really good quarterbacks, 2 guys who, a pair of guys who had a fantastic junior season. We're going to see Paul Tyson this weekend at our Rivals camp down in Mobile. He had to. He was actually going to come to our Rivals camp in Atlanta, but switched it up because he had something going on that weekend. But we're going to see him this weekend in Mobile. A lot of guys from Louisiana, Arkansas, the Mobile area, the Gulf Coast region will be at that camp this weekend. So we're going to see a lot of top talent this weekend. I'm interested to see how Tyson does with a lot of other top quarterbacks from around the country.
Mississippi, and let's be honest, over the years, Alabama's had some great players from Mississippi. It's been more kind of a cherry-picking type of recruiting. Never have signed huge numbers from there, but when they have signed guys, they've been really, really good for the most part. Alabama already has a commitment from Brandon Turnage, the outstanding athlete out of Oxford, Mississippi. And Mississippi, for its size, its population base, as we know, turns out some outstanding prospects. And this year, they've got several of the top players in the country. How hard do you expect Alabama to recruit the Magnolia State in this cycle?
Alabama's certainly going to spend a lot of time in Mississippi this year, and we've seen several of these top guys from Mississippi visit Tuscaloosa already. N'Kobe Dean, the Rivals 100 linebacker, one of the best linebackers in the country out of Horn Lake High School, has visited Alabama several times, has Alabama on his short list. Now, he's going to keep an open mind. He's going to take several visits and enjoy the recruiting process, but I definitely think that Alabama is right there at the top of the list for him. Another big defensive lineman that Alabama's very high on is Nathan Pickering. He is an elite defensive end that Alabama has very high interest in. Now, they tried to get him on campus this weekend. Not sure if he's going to visit, may take an unofficial visit to Georgia, but has been to Tuscaloosa a few times and definitely has some interest. Byron Young, another defensive lineman, going to visit Alabama this weekend. That's a name to kind of keep an eye on. I think he has a lot of interest. He's out of Laurel, Mississippi, so he's a big defensive end to kind of watch. But there's several guys who are over there. There's some guys who've already made commitments to Mississippi State and Ole Miss that Alabama's going to continue to recruit. But those are some of the main guys that are not committed right now that I think Alabama has a good chance to sign. One area where Nick Saban really got Alabama going when he came to Tuscaloosa was the state of Georgia. Alabama had success in Georgia before. I'm not saying that's not the case, but he made a renewed emphasis to go in there, particularly in the Atlanta area, and get players. Now with Kirby Smart at Georgia, we know it's getting tougher. Alabama didn't sign a player from the state of Georgia this past recruiting cycle either. How important is it that Alabama get back into the state of Georgia and get some of those guys? Well, it's important. It's also it's a hard state to recruit because there's a lot of schools that recruit Georgia, and obviously Georgia, the Georgia Bulldogs have a lot of success recruiting that state. And they always have. But, you're going up against programs like Florida State and Florida and Auburn and Tennessee, Michigan. You have a lot of schools that recruit that state. But there's a lot of really good football players in that state. You already have one commitment in King Mwakuta out of LaGrange at Troop High School. You've got some other guys that are very high on Alabama's list. Of course, you're trying to flip a few guys as well. Christopher Hinton, 5-star defensive end out of Norcross, Georgia. He's been committed to Michigan for a while. Alabama's still heavily recruiting him. Owen Papoi, a Rivals 100 linebacker out of Grayson High School. There's some big-time guys that are in that state. I think Alabama, out of all the guys in the state of Georgia, I think Alabama probably has the best chance with Jaylen Mccollough, a Rivals 100 defensive back from Hillgrove High School in Powder Springs, Georgia. Big-time defensive back that Alabama's liked for a very long time. I think he has Alabama at the top of his list right now. Another guy, Derek McClendon, out of Tucker, Georgia. He's 6'4", 230 pounds, could play defensive end, could grow into a defensive end or play outside linebacker. But one of those edge rushers that Alabama really likes a lot. So there's a lot of talent in Georgia this year. I think Alabama's going to have some success. Now, will they be able to get 5 or 6 guys from Georgia? I'm not sure about that, but I think we'll see a little bit more from the state of Georgia in this year's class than we did last year. Andrew Bone with us talking recruiting for 2019. You can follow him on Twitter at Andrew J. Bone, and, of course, find his work at Rivals.com and BamaInsider.com. We mentioned the staff earlier, and clearly there was an eye on recruiting with Nick Saban making these staff decisions that he's made. Wants good coaches on the field, too. I get that.
How much do you think he was bothered? Alabama has had the reputation for being the best closer in the country. How much do you think it bothered him, Andrew, that in the second signing period, they didn't close the way we're accustomed to seeing them close, and they had some scholarships left available at the end of the cycle? How much do you think that motivates him? And secondly, how do you think he'll adjust to having two signing periods? Do you think that that threw Alabama off a little bit maybe this past year?
Well, I think it threw a lot. I think it threw a lot of people off. Just the way you had to kind of go about it and try to make decisions based on what kids are telling you. Because you had so many kids that were kind of undecided whether or not they were going to sign in December or if they were going to wait until February. So Nick Saban, along with several other head coaches throughout the country, were having to risk going and seeing these guys in December, and then when they decide, we're going to wait till February to decide, they miss their opportunity to go see them a week or two before National Signing Day. So, they're going to have to adjust. They're going to have to, I think Nick Saban and with this new staff just continue to develop relationships, get close, and just develop trust with a lot of these guys. I think Alabama felt, like they were kind of misled by a few recruits leading up until National Signing Day. Some guys they felt very good about on heading into, I guess, probably that Tuesday night or Wednesday morning of National Signing Day. They felt pretty good about some guys, and those guys ended up announcing elsewhere. So, it's a tough business. I mean, it happens from time to time, but I don't think it's happened as much in the past as it did this past year for Alabama. I would. There's probably, not to name any names, but there were probably 4 or 5 guys in this recruiting cycle who had basically told Alabama, we are coming, this is the school that I'm going to, and then when they got ready to announce, they announced for another school. So that's kind of the first time that I've seen that with Alabama. I've seen it, like I said, I've seen it 1 or 2 times maybe during a recruiting season, but not nearly as many as I have this past year. So they're just going to have to continue to build trust with these guys and, know so many people that are around them, know their families, extremely well, and just know kind of what they're getting into with a lot of these guys and, make the best decision that they can.
Before we finish up, Bone, I want to get your opinion on this. I've read a lot of recruiting sites and, different analysts for all the different sports coverage things that we have now, whether it's internet, broadcast, TV, whatever. And everybody continues to talk about how it's going to get tougher and tougher for Alabama in recruiting. And I agree with that. I still think Nick Saban, though, will make the adjustments. But one thing I wonder about, when he got to LSU, he did some things, and certainly when he came to Alabama, he even took it to the next level, that probably had not been done in recruiting. Everything from evaluating through the camps, offering guys sooner, all the different things on campus that they did in recruiting visits that maybe other people weren't doing, that made Alabama unique and made Alabama stand out. And now with everybody watching Alabama and so many of his former coaches leading programs, I guess what I'm trying to say is you used to go to Alabama, Bone, and I think you would agree with this, and you might see some things or be told some things or shown some things that maybe were unique and you didn't see at other schools. Now, when you go to Georgia or you go to A&M or you go to Tennessee or you go to South Carolina, wherever it is, I think you're from facilities right on down to how they, take recruits on around town, everything. You don't come to Alabama anymore and say, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like this. Basically, everybody's recruiting the same way. Am I right there? And it makes it harder for even Alabama to stand out?
Well, I think so. I think in terms of, it's kind of keeping up with the Joneses. Everybody wants to try to beat the best. And what do? You try to upgrade your facilities. You try to, you have different events on campus that maybe some other schools don't have. We've seen Alabama start to do that a little bit more. Alabama kind of stayed away from the whole gimmick weekends, and then all of a sudden, they kind of caught up to it. They started having a thing called the Champions Cookout during the summer, but now we're seeing Greg Byrne go around to different universities and different programs to kind of look and see what can Alabama do to improve their program. And obviously they added a barbershop at the football facility. What are they going to do next? And I think another big selling to us, especially during the spring, is when that NFL draft comes about. When Alabama has, potentially this year, they may have 4 or 5 first-round draft picks, and that's something that those Alabama coaches and especially the new guys are really going to try to sell to these guys, to these top recruits throughout the country. Hey, we're Alabama. We just had 5 guys go in the first round of the NFL draft, and this happens almost every single year. So that's something they'll continue to sell. But I definitely think we're going to continue to see Alabama make improvements, off the field in terms of facilities upgrades or whatever they may do, because they do know that a lot of these other top programs throughout the country are certainly doing that. Whether it's Auburn or Georgia or Michigan and Clemson and Ohio State or USC, these are the programs that they're competing up against for top recruits every single year. So they're going to have to, certainly, and the thing is, they've got the money to do it. They've got, obviously, we've seen the numbers that come in every single year, how much money the athletic department makes. And, they've certainly got the money to do it. Some programs may not have the money to do it, but Alabama certainly does. So they're going to do whatever it takes to make sure they're always at the top of the list in terms of facilities and, having things that other programs don't have.
Well, I know you're always competing to get the best coverage, and tell the listeners how they can keep up with all the recruiting coverage that you provide.
Well, please follow me on my Twitter handle at Andrew J. Bone, and please follow us at BamaInsider.com, which is home on the Rivals Network for the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Thank you, Bone.
All right, thanks, Gary. Have a good one.